Meanwhile, domestically, the president is taking on Republicans, saying it's time for immigration reform comprehensive. Jeff Birnbaum of the Washington Times next.
Awesome. And I will have to mention the NBC coverage of the immigration issue last night on the news as a part of this.
I could guess.
Stay here. You're listening to the Armstrong and Getty Show.
As we mentioned a couple of times in the last couple of days, with all the international news that's been so wild, interesting, troubling, etc., we've almost forgotten we got a country to run. Jeff Birnbaum joins us, Fox News political analyst, Washington Times columnist, president of BGR Public Relations. Why, if I'm ever caught with a hooker, I'll call BGR Public Relations. Jeff, let's talk about President Obama, immigration reform, etc. What's happening?
Well, the president gave a interview to CNN's Spanish language network and really threw down the gauntlet to the Republicans, saying the Republicans had better take a look at the census figures that show that 17% of Americans are now Hispanic, and that's a very quickly growing minority. And if they want to be competitive with that important sector of the electorate, they had better get right on immigration from his point of view, which is comprehensive immigration.
Pitting ethnicity against ethnicity, racial politics. Excellent.
I thought it was interesting, and maybe you can comment on this, or maybe not. NBC News last night did a big segment on this in their half-hour evening news on the new census figures that the president was talking about regarding Hispanics in America. Never once mentioned illegal immigration. Never once. As if this has all just occurred on purpose. It was some sort of plan, or everybody's gone through the process and we're cool with that. Does this come up at all?
It didn't come up in the interview either.
Of course not.
The president really drove this interview, and I think from the Republican perspective, distorted the GOP's position on immigration, so that it didn't sound like they were against illegal immigration, which of course Republicans are, but were against immigrants somehow.
Right.
That's how it's being spun, and I think this is important for the Democrats. They do have a polling advantage at the moment with the Hispanic community, and it is an important electoral block, especially in some key places around the country. And so clearly this is one thing the president doesn't want, despite what he's saying, is he really doesn't want Congress to pass immigration legislation. He wants the issue here. He wants to be able to talk about it in order to get more Hispanic voters to come out and vote Democratic in a couple of years.
And he's doing it on a Spanish-speaking television.
I'm not nearly cynical enough.
I mean,
in a world where the president of the United States is smearing the line between illegal and lawful immigration for the purpose of winning votes, that's disgusting. Sorry. I'm very disgusted to continue.
Was that a question?
No, that's just a spasm of horror.
Well, again, this is commentary for me, and you can add on to it or not. But on the census figures they were shown on NBC News last night. So you're doing a story about the growing segment of the United States population that is Hispanic, and then how Spanish-speaking television and radio is dominating the landscape, and giving all the ratings and everything like that, and saying primarily the growth has been in the South and the West, and they never mentioned. Oh, you mean all those states along the border of Mexico haven't had an explosion in growth in people who speak Spanish, but you're not going to mention how that happened as a national policy? That is incredible to me. And the president apparently is going to try to get away with that too, and is getting away with it.
Well, what I would take from this is the passion of your comment, and it is a very passionate debate, a very important one, emotional debate. That's what makes it so key, in my view, on an election basis. It's one of those things that will make a very big difference on election day in certain parts of the country. And the fact that the president is doing this, I think, will make a big difference in certain places, and is a challenge to Republicans to have to deal with it, whether it's fair or unfair. The president clearly has signaled he's going to use this card. Some people can call it a race card, I think it's fair to say. The Republicans need a response, or they're going to lose millions of votes.
Well, so far over the years, though, the Republican response has been to try to court the Hispanic vote also, so they don't get into the whole illegal debate either.
Or they try to pit both. Or they try to have it both ways and end up just seeming milquetoast and irrelevant. Jeff Birnbaum, Fox News political analyst, Washington Times columnist, president of BGR Public Relations. Jeff, it's always interesting. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, we appreciate it.
And what's amazing to me is that you've got a story going on. NBC covered it last night, but just a story of a country, that the makeup of that country is undergoing a radical change.
Right.
And nobody's talking about why it's happening or whether or not we want it to happen.
Right.
It's not our national policy. We didn't decide as a government that we need to increase our population or our ethnic makeup or anything like that by a certain percentage. It's just happening completely haphazardly.
I think the political class did make that decision, but they know the people wouldn't go for it, so they're doing it on the QT, and on the down low.
And the media, I guess, the way the NBC News handled it last night, I guess the media is so scared of somebody. Because the population now of Hispanics is so great, it's the largest group out there,
right?
Other than whites. Now that it's so great, you might piss them off if you mention, of course, that's primarily driven by illegal immigration.
Well, I don't even think it's that practical. I just think it's under dogma. The illegals are the plucky underdog. I've got to be for them. And this childlike, frequently lefty notion that any challenging of any minority group on any point is oppression and racism. And I'm way more enlightened than that. I'm far too enlightened to engage in that.
And also the angle that we got in trouble for a couple of years ago. So NBC's doing a big feature on number one ratings. Telemundo or Television or Univision or one of them, they had a drama debut recently, beat all the other channels. NBC, ABC, CBS, their big dramas got trounced by the Spanish-speaking show. And, of course, that is just put out there as, see how things have changed, with no conversation about what does that do to society now that there are so many people speaking a different language. What's that doing to schools and to hospitals and the court system and everything else? Not even a question raised on that. I mean, that's so disingenuous.
Or stupid. I talk to these people. They mean it. They don't think they're being disingenuous. They're brainwashed in that direction. To even discuss what does it mean to have a society divided by language?
A dual language society, which we haven't had in the past. We are having now and are going to have in the future. Right. What does that mean? Does anybody want to discuss that or just let it happen?
Why are you such a racist?
Our phone number is 1-866-331-TALK, 1-866-331-TALK. You are listening to The Armstrong and Getty Show. I've been waiting for this moment. 1 out of 6 Americans Hispanic now, according to the 2010 census. That's why Barack Obama said the Republican Party better get on board and realize what's happening in this country.
Well, he's starting to throw punches for 2012. Here we go.
And nobody apparently is going to have the conversation about how it's happening or whether or not you should have borders or not. Any comment? 1-866-331-TALK. It is 7 o'clock. Armstrong and Getty.
I can't read some newspaper that they show
in order to become president of the United States, in order to
I want him to show his birth certificate. I want him to show his birth certificate. There's something on that birth certificate that he doesn't like.
Oh, my God. That's a terrible thing to say.
Whoopi, I'm telling you.
Whoopi,
I love you. I'm telling you.
I love you, too. I think that's the biggest pile of dog mess I've heard in ages.
The question is, why not show it, right? There's something on his birth certificate he doesn't want to show.
It's not because he's black.
Let him show. Has nothing to do with that.
I've never heard any white president asked to be shown the birth certificate. When you become a president of the United States of America, you know that he's American. I'm sorry, that's BS.
Wow.
How could you watch that show? Oh, God. All of them talking at once, all the time, until somebody just kind of fights their way through the garden, achieves verbal supremacy, and actually gets to spit out a sentence. Then it's back to...
That's Donald Trump on The View, and between their taking him seriously and all shouting at once their dislike of his position and his faux birther change of heart as he pretends to run for president.
And then Woopie playing the only card she has, the race card.
Well, I didn't even hear what she said.
Oh, you didn't? Well,
it was difficult.
My ears are, Jack, I have a wife and 2 daughters, so my ears are tuned specially to be able to hear through cacophony of female voices. She says, is it because he's black? I've never heard a white president ask for a birth certificate. Oh, for God's sake, you are so tired. You are so tired. Meanwhile, Woopie getting an endorsement deal. Glad to see that. Not clear if it's the new Cadillacs or maybe a prominent grocery chain or, I don't know, Ellen DeGeneres is doing cosmetics. What's Woopie Goldberg endorsing?
Stop it, Leonardo. Stop it. Now I'm wet because of you. I'm not going to get up and change now because I have on 14 tons of clothing. I'm not going to get up. I'm going to sit here in the wet because of you. I hate when he does that because he knows every time I have a small little laugh, anytime I get a little squeak in my stomach, I make like a little spritz. You know what I mean? This happens to me all the time. I'm told it happens to 1 in 3 women. But what can you do about it? Nothing. He just wants to paint my picture.
This is Woopie Goldberg.
I don't want to be painted. I want to be dry. I want to be dry.
That's Woopie Goldberg as the Mona Lisa. By the way, doing a mocking Italian accent.
Which you find offensive as an Italian.
Exactly. Which is perfectly acceptable for like 60% of the ethnicities on Earth, but a horrifying, it's like knifing him in the aorta for like the other 40%, for reasons that remain somewhat misty to me, freaking oversensitive weirdos. But she is complaining to Leonardo because she has a bladder issue. Bladder control. Every time I laugh, there's a little spritz, she says.
She lizzes.
She lizzes. It's a bladder leakage ad. I don't know if is it a remedy or a garment she's pitching, Scott? Do you have any idea?
Goldberg's doing an ad for some sort of pill or something that helps you
or
if you leak.
Pad or pants or I don't know what.
Cork.
You know, I would say this.
That's a classy endorsement.
And who among us is we...
1 in 3 women have the problem I have. Every time you burp, you wet yourself.
All of us, as we advance down the road of life toward greater wisdom and the grave, we develop these little problems, but that's what the internet is for. Come on. If you wet every time you chuckle, I understand. You got to deal with it. You got to find a product or a service or a pill. So that's great. If I get swollen scrotum syndrome, I'm going to seek some counsel for that. But I don't need to talk about it in front of everyone.